Get that crippled animal out of my sight. It's worthless, just like you.
Get that crippled animal out of my sight. It's worthless. Just like you. The village chief threw those words at a wounded soldier who had lost his leg fighting for his country. The soldier had just rescued a lame horse that everyone wanted dead. They called him crazy. They called him a burden. But one dark night, when disaster came for the entire village, that soldier and that horse were the only ones standing between life and death. This is the story of a wounded warrior and a broken horse that nobody wanted. Together, they saved an entire village from destruction and proved that those the world calls worthless are sometimes worth more than gold. In a quiet village surrounded by tall mountains and thick forests, there lived a young man named Elijah. He wasn't always broken. There was a time when Elijah was the pride of his village, the strongest and bravest young man anyone had ever seen. When war came to the kingdom, Elisha was the first to volunteer. He marched away with his head held high, promising his mother he'd return a hero, and in many ways, he did. But he also came back as something else, something the village wasn't prepared to accept. The war lasted 3 brutal years. Elisha fought in battles that would haunt his dreams forever. He saved countless lives, carried wounded brothers on his back through enemy fire, and never once retreated when duty called. But on the final day of the war, a cannonball exploded near his position. When he woke up in the medical tent, his right leg was gone from the knee down. The doctors saved his life, but they couldn't save the future he had imagined. At 24 years old, Elijah became half the man he used to be. At least, that's what he believed. When Elijah finally returned to his village, leaning on a wooden crutch, the welcome was not what he expected. His mother had passed away while he was gone, taken by a fever the winter before. His small cottage had fallen into disrepair, and the people who once cheered his name now looked at him with something far worse than hatred. Pity, mixed with inconvenience. A wounded soldier with one leg couldn't plow fields. He couldn't haul lumber. He couldn't do the work that made a man valuable in a village like this. To them, Elijah was no longer a hero. He was a burden. The village chief, a wealthy and arrogant man named Conrad, made his feelings clear from the start. Conrad owned most of the land in the valley. His family had ruled this village for generations, and he carried himself like a king among peasants. When Elijah limped into the village square on his first day back, Conrad stepped in front of him with a sneer on his face. "So the cripple returns," Conrad said loud enough for everyone to hear. "What good are you now, soldier? You can't work, you can't fight. You're just another mouth to feed." Elijah didn't respond. He just lowered his eyes and kept walking. He had faced enemies on the battlefield who wanted him dead, but somehow this felt worse. These were his own people, the people he had fought to protect, and they were treating him like garbage. Days turned into weeks. Elijah survived on the small pension the army gave him, barely enough to buy bread and fix the leaks in his roof. He spent most of his time alone, sitting on his porch and staring at the mountains, wondering what purpose he had left in this world. Some villagers were kind to him. They would bring him food or stop to talk, but most avoided him, as if his misfortune was contagious. The children would sometimes mock him, imitating his limp and laughing, and every time Conrad passed by, he made sure to remind Elijah of his worthlessness. One cold autumn morning, Elijah heard shouting coming from the edge of the village. Curious, he grabbed his crutch and made his way toward the noise. A crowd had gathered near Conrad's stables, and in the center of the commotion was a horse. But not just any horse. It was a once beautiful brown mare, now thin and weak, with a twisted front leg that bent at an unnatural angle. The horse could barely stand, and every step it took was filled with visible pain. "This animal is useless," Conrad was shouting. "It broke its leg months ago and never healed right. I've wasted enough money on it. Kill it and be done with it." One of Conrad's workers raised an axe, ready to put the horse down. The crowd watched in silence. Some looked away. Others seemed unbothered. It was just a horse, after all. A broken one at that, but Elijah saw something else. He saw himself, a creature that had once been strong and proud, now cast aside because it could no longer serve its purpose. A living being that still had a heart beating inside it, still had breath in its lungs, still had a will to survive, and something inside Elijah snapped. "Wait!" he shouted, pushing through the crowd as fast as his crutch would allow. "Don't kill it. Give it to me." Conrad turned and looked at Elijah like he was insane. "He beat too. What would a cripple do with a crippled horse?" The crowd laughed. Even the worker with the axe cracked a smile, but Elijah didn't back down. "I'll take care of it," he sighed firmly. "It won't cost you anything. Just let it live." Conrad stared at him for a long moment, then shrugged with cruel amusement. "Fine. Take your broken horse, Cripple. You two deserve each other." More laughter from the crowd. Elijah ignored them. He limped forward and gently took the rope, tied around the horse's neck. The mare looked at him with large, frightened eyes, trembling from pain and fear. "Easy, girl," Elijah whispered softly. "I'm not gonna hurt you. You're safe now." He led the horse away slowly, both of them limping, both of them broken. Behind them, the laughter continued, but Elijah didn't care. For the first time since he came home, he had a purpose. Elijah named the horse Grace. It seemed fitting. Despite everything she had been through, there was still something graceful about the way she held her head, the way she looked at him with those gentle brown eyes. Over the following weeks, Elijah dedicated himself to caring for her. He used his small pension to buy medicine and good feed. He built a simple shelter beside his cottage to keep her warm. He massaged her injured leg with oils and herbs, trying to ease her pain. The villagers thought he had lost his mind. They would walk past his cottage and shake their heads, whispering about the crazy crippled soldier and his broken horse. Conrad made sure to mock him whenever possible. "Look at them," he would say, to anyone who would listen. "Two useless creatures, pretending to be worth something. They'll both be dead by winter." But something remarkable began to happen. Grace started to heal. Not completely, not perfectly, but enough. Her leg grew stronger. Her coat regained its shine. She started walking with less pain, even trotting short distances. And more than that, she began to trust Elijah in a way she had never trusted anyone before. She would nuzzle his shoulder when he sat beside her. She would whinny softly when she heard his crutch approaching. They had formed a bond, two broken souls holding each other together. Elijah found healing too, not in his leg, that would never grow back, but in his heart. The darkness that had consumed him since the war began to lift. He had someone who needed him, someone who didn't see him as a burden. Grace didn't care that he had one leg. She didn't care that he walked slowly or couldn't run. She just saw the man who had saved her life, and that was enough. Once passed winter came and went. Spring brought new life to the valley, and with it, a sense of peace that Elijah hadn't felt in years. Grace was now strong enough to carry him on her back for short rides through the forest. They would go out together every morning, the wounded soldier and the lame horse, exploring the mountains and valleys that surrounded the village. Elijah learned every path, every stream, every hidden corner of the land, and Grace, with her extraordinary senses, taught him to read the forest in ways he never had before. But not everyone was happy to see Elisha thriving. Conrad's jealousy had grown into something darker. He couldn't stand the sight of the crippled soldier riding that horse, looking almost normal, almost whole. It reminded him that he had been wrong, and Conrad hated being wrong more than anything. One summer evening, Conrad approached Elijah with a proposition. "Sell me the horse," he demanded. "I'll give you a fair price. You can use the money to leave this village and start over somewhere else, where nobody knows you're a cripple." Elijah looked at him calmly. "Grace isn't for sale." Conrad's face twisted with anger. "Everything is for sale, soldier. Name your price." "There is no price," Elijah replied. "She's my family now, and you don't sell family." Conrad stepped closer, his voice dropping to a threatening whisper. "You're making a mistake, Cripple. I always get what I want, one way or another." Elijah didn't flinch. "Then I guess you'll have to learn to live with disappointment." Conrad stormed away, but Elijah knew this wasn't over. Men like Conrad didn't accept rejection. They found ways to take what they wanted, no matter who got hurt in the process. Late one autumn night, Elisha was awakened by Grace's frantic whinnying. She was stomping her hooves and pulling at her rope, more agitated than he had ever seen her. He grabbed his crutch and hurried outside, expecting to find a wolf or some other predator threatening the stable. But there was nothing. The night was still, almost too. No wind. No crickets. Even the birds had gone silent. Elijah looked at Grace, confused. "What is it, girl? What's wrong?" Grace kept pulling toward the mountain, her eyes wide with fear. She wasn't looking at Elijah. She was looking at the ridge above the village, the tall, rocky slope that had stood there for as long as anyone could remember. And then Elijah felt it, a low rumble beneath his feet, so faint he almost thought he imagined it. But Grace felt it too. She felt it before anyone else. In that moment, Elijah understood. All those mornings in the forest, all those rides through the mountains, Grace had been sensing things he couldn't. Animals knew when danger was coming. They could feel earthquakes, smell floods, sense disasters before any human could. And right now, Grace was telling him something was terribly wrong. Elijah's heart pounded. He didn't have time to doubt. He didn't have time to second guess. He grabbed an old war horn from his cottage, the same one he had carried in battle, and began blowing it as loud as he could. The sound echoed through the sleeping village, sharp and urgent. "Wake up," he screamed between blasts. "Everyone wake up. Get to high ground." Now, doors flew open. People stumbled outside in their nightclothes, confused and angry. "What's the meaning of this?" Conrad shouted from his mansion window. "Have you gone completely mad?" But Elijah didn't stop. "Run," he yelled. "The mountain is coming down. Get to the East Hill. Now." Some people listened, the ones who trusted Elijah, the ones who had seen his courage in war, grabbed their families and ran toward the East Hill, the highest point near the village, but others hesitated. Conrad laughed from his window. "You're insane, Cripple. Go back to sleep, everyone. There's no danger." And then the ground shook. Not a rumble this time, but a violent tremor that knocked people off their feet. A deafening roar filled the air as the ridge above the village began to crack. Rocks the size of houses broke loose and tumbled downward. The landslide was coming, and it was coming fast. Panic erupted. People screamed and ran in every direction. Elijah climbed onto Grace's back and rode through the chaos, shouting directions, guiding people toward safety. Grace ran despite her bad leg, faster than she ever had, fueled by adrenaline and purpose. Together they swept through the village, saving a mother and her children here, an old man there, pulling people from their homes and pushing them toward the hill. The landslide hit the village with a sound like thunder. Boulders and mud swallowed homes, buried streets, destroyed everything in their path. But the people on the East Hill were safe. They watched in horror as half their village disappeared beneath rock and earth. And when the dust finally settled, they realized something miraculous. Not a single person had died. Every soul had made it to safety, because of a wounded soldier on a lame horse who sounded the alarm when no one else believed. When dawn broke, the survivors gathered on the hill and looked at the destruction below. Conrad's mansion was gone, buried under tons of rubble. His wealth, his power, his arrogance, all of it destroyed in an instant. He stood among the common people now, covered in dust, stripped of everything that had made him feel superior. And standing before him was the crippled soldier he had mocked for years, the one who had saved every life in the village, including his. Conrad fell to his knees. "I'm sorry," he choked out, tears streaming down his face. "I was wrong about you. About both of you. Please forgive me." Elijah looked down at the broken man before him. He could have been bitter. He could have reminded Conrad of every cruel word, every insult, every moment of humiliation. But that wasn't who Elijah was. Instead, he reached out his hand and helped Conrad to his feet. "We're all just trying to survive," Elijah said quietly. "That's what matters now." In the months that followed, the village rebuilt. But things were different. Elijah was no longer seen as a burden. He was their hero, the man who had saved them all. The villagers gave him the best plot of land to build a new home. They helped him every way they could, repaying the debt they could never fully repay. Conrad, humbled by the disaster and by Elijah's mercy, became a different man. He donated his remaining resources to the rebuilding effort and worked alongside the common people, no longer above them but among them. He never mocked anyone again, and Grace lived out her days as the most beloved horse in the village. Children would bring her apples and brush her mane. Elders would pat her neck and thank her. She had a special stable built just for her, warm in winter and cool in summer. When she finally passed away many years later, the entire village gathered for her burial. They placed a stone marker beside her grave that read, "Here rests Grace." She could not run fast. She could not stand straight. But when it mattered most, she saved us all. Elijah lived to be an old man, respected and loved by everyone who knew his story. And whenever young people asked him what he had learned from his journey, he would always say the same thing. The world will tell you that broken things have no value. Don't believe it. The broken know something the whole never learn. They know how to survive. They know how to fight. And sometimes, when the world needs saving, it's the broken ones who rise. Friends, if this story touched your heart, drop a comment telling me what lesson it taught you. Let me know what country you're watching from. Hit that like button. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. And subscribe so you don't miss more stories like this one. There's more waiting for you right on your screen. Thank you for staying with me until the end.